Hi, we're here to talk about Facebook's video ads. We knew they were coming. We've been talking about them for a while. What will these mid-roll ads mean for the user experience?
It's going to be a very different experience than what we have come to get used to on the news feed, in the sense that it's been ad-free thus far. Facebook's perspective is that a mid-roll type of advertisement will be a lot more consumable than something certainly up front.
You won't get to show the mid-roll unless it exceeds a certain time limit. So instead of a bunch of short videos, it probably marks a break point where Facebook is now firmly moving into video distribution, is expecting to get more and more long format videos.
Talk a little bit about what it means for publishers and their relationship with advertisers.
Well, certainly publishers are going to be aware that this sort of puts a little bit of distance between them and the advertisers. I do think, though, that the 55%, which is similar to what YouTube gives, I do think that will be an incentive for publishers to create longer format videos, and additionally to make sure that those first 20 seconds are really engaging so they can get to the point where a user is indeed seeing the advertising so they can get revenue from it. But I do think that, from a larger strategic perspective, the publishers need to consider how they keep that tight relationship with brands and marketers that they've maybe had decades of relationship with in this new environment. And bit by bit, some of those relationships are going to the social networks rather than the publishers themselves, and I think that's a challenge that they're just going to have to struggle with as all these new different ways of monetizing content continue to roll.
I keep asking you, Frank, to help me figure out what fake news is, because I get a lot of inquiries from major newspapers asking us to supply data, like what is fake news, how can you track it, how big does it get, where does it come from? So it came up again, it's come up a lot this week with Trump calling CNN fake news.
I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
There's no crystal clear easy answer, right? So you have to break it down into a few segments. There's news that you don't like that's not necessarily fake news. There's news that is maybe factually inaccurate, but an attempt was made to follow journalistic ethics and things like that. And maybe that's not necessarily fake news, it's just a mistake.
Right.
But then there's clearly news that's designed to deceive and trick people. What I'm starting to look into is measuring trust in the entity that distributes the news, and then using the way you measure that trust and how it grows over time to determine the validity of the type of output that they have. So that the idea being, if you trust an entity, you'd expect the audience to grow commensurate with the typical traditional, well-credentialed and established news source. What a lot of these folks are doing is astroturfing their distribution. So they will pay to get the articles to spike, and their audiences seemingly don't grow as fast. And I'm in the middle of researching that right now with the team.
Please hurry, because this is like, I feel like this is not
Going away.
This is not going away, and it's like the holy grail right now of social media and content, and what is fake news and how do you stop it?
Yeah, I think it's worth reiterating a point that Jim made on a few of the news programs when he was making the rounds a couple weeks ago, and that's fake news is a problem, lying is a problem. We should do everything we can to try to establish what's wrong and try to measure it and call it out. I think there's a few low-tech solutions that could be implemented. One thing that we've suggested to some of our partners is there should be a reaction. I would prefer Facebook to introduce a skepticism reaction so that you could see your friends being skeptical of something, and then you could start to source it through filters. What I want to avoid is a centralized clearinghouse of truth, because that's not really the ethos of social media. It's a democratized sharing of information, and having a single arbiter of truth runs counter to the whole reason why we have these networks, right? So what we want to do is you want to give people the ability to make up their own mind, but we don't want to make it so easy to deceive people that they can't tell the difference between what's real and what's fake until they've already been had. So I want to measure those things, but what I would like to also throughout the course of this year is keep providing our partners with the data that hopefully they say, one of those type of reactions that indicate skepticism, and I can see who is skeptical of it, and I know, like, all right, well, I trust that person, I trust this person. I mean, that's how I source my news through these networks anyway.
Yeah.
I would really prefer a mechanism like that as an interim bridge before we start, turning over the decision of what is truthful and what is not to like a single entity.
Entity.
Yeah.